Welcome to DAX Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of DAX Machina. We're glad you guys are with us tonight. It's going to be a great night. We're going to be talking about some creepy stories. And joining me in the studio tonight is my brother from another mother, Robbie Rip Rains. How's the weather out there in South Crackalacky, Robbie?
It's holding right around the low 60s.
It's a little cool here too, but feels pretty good out.
Yeah, this is my kind of weather though. I'd rather it be this weather than hot any day of the week.
Hey, you know, big guys definitely don't like hot weather, especially big cops who sweat their butts off in body armor.
Yeah,
I do not miss that.
Me either, but unfortunately, I got to relive it every day that I go to work.
Well, prayers with you, brother. Hopefully you'll get to hang that up before too long. And
6 years and
who
some
knows?
change.
Who knows? You know, things might take a crazy turn, and we might just pick up something else entirely. So we'll just have to see how things go. But again, thank you guys for joining us tonight. We're going to have an awesome time with you guys. We're going to be telling some creepy stories, some campfire stories, and some viewer encounters, encounter stories that have been sent to me. These aren't all of the ones that I've been sent, but I wasn't sure how much time this would take because some of them are a couple of them are pretty long. So we're gonna tell some ones that are sent in. We're not going to be using anybody's names. Just wanted to kind of put that out there as a blanket, just to be on the safe side. We're not going to put anybody's names out there, but we are going to talk about some of these encounter stories, and some of them are short. Some of them are just brief sightings. But the ones we've got saved for the end are pretty lengthy, and they're ones that I think you guys are really going to like. Robbie, you ready for Halloween? I noticed you got your orange on.
Yeah, might as well be some pumpkins the way things are going tonight.
They not playing so well?
Well, I mean, they only lose them by a touchdown, but they're not doing what they should be doing, in my estimation. But it is what it is.
Well, can't win every game, I suppose. But
No.
You know what they say on any given Sunday.
Yep. It's definitely not their year this year. They're new OC and first year with that quarterback. So I mean, yeah, it is what it is.
I hear you. I don't know if any of y'all saw the promo video I put out, the film we shot of me in front of the UH-1H. I did that intentionally. I did that as kind of a tribute to my brother Danny. He passed away a few years ago, and he was a big proponent of creepy stories. And since we happened to be near the Vietnam Memorial, and I saw that UH-1H, I thought this would probably be a good time to say something about that. Haliwa Wolf says, DA, where should we send our stories for you to receive them? Here, let me post that up there.
Yeah, Stream Elements just put it up.
Stream Elements, I must have heard it. Oh, Toombs got it. Toombs beat me to it. There we go. Just send it to the email address on there. And if you prefer to write it out, there's a PO box on there as well. I don't mind getting them on postcards because those are just as cool too. William Nighthawk says, watch it. I scare easily.
Somehow I don't believe that, William.
I'm right there with you, brother. I'm in a pretty good mood tonight. I've had kind of a rough couple of weeks, but tonight I'm feeling pretty optimistic and pretty happy. I'm glad that everybody's here. I'm happy with the way the weather is right now. Got a few things worked out and back to writing, and I think everything's gonna turn out all right. So
not everything, but
not everything. Well, you can't have everything. I did get to watch Mizzou beat South Carolina though.
Well, that at least is a silver lining in my book, because I hate South Carolina. Sorry to any of you South Carolina fans, but not sorry. I don't like.
Not a Gamecocks fan, I take it.
No, 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 no,
North
no, no.
Northwood says, after being married to my ex, nothing much scares me.
Northwood's on the board again.
Yep. Do-do-do.
It's 6 minutes and 12 seconds into the show.
Heck yeah. Northwoods is already firing off rounds. Abnormal Investigations. Hey, brother, thank you for the kind words. Good to have you here. So, you want to start out with the first one?
Oh, sure.
All righty, I'll let you jump in with it. It's not a long one, but it's a good one, folks. And again, we're not mentioning names.
Make sure I pull up the second one that you sent instead of the first one. All right. Okay. It says, hi, I'm not sure what to make of what happened this morning on my way to work. I don't own a vehicle right now, so I'm on a bike until the weather gets too nasty for that. Right in the same area, I've had rabbits, foxes, and even deer cross the street in front of me. Something walking upright on two legs crosses the street. There is no way that it was a bear walking on two legs. If it was a person, they had their face and their hands covered in black, and they were not carrying a flashlight of any kind. When I got to that spot, I couldn't see or hear anything. When I got home later, I will see, or when I get home later, I will see if I can find any signs or something going through the brush. The crazy part of this encounter I had almost 4 years ago is that both took place inside the city limits. This is a half a mile at the most from the first one. Both are less than 10 miles from where BMR had his encounter.
I think that one, the one that I find the most interesting about that is it was in town.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about that. When you talk about the ring cameras and things like that, or people getting cougars and bears and stuff like that in downtown suburbia. I mean, all animals are on the move right now. So, I mean, it's, kind of just stands to reason that you're going to start seeing stuff like that.
Yeah, I would agree. I've seen skunks and possums and deer, and I've seen Ring doorbell camera footage of mountain lions, but I don't know how I'd react if I was taking my trash out and saw something big and hairy cross my driveway. That's a little closer than I want to run into it.
Didn't we have a story sometime last year when we was reading stories that somebody took their trash out and there was a Dogman out at the end of their driveway?
Yeah, that was happened up near St. Louis.
Yeah.
He went out to take his trash out, and there was a Dogman standing at the end of his driveway. I don't think I'd be taking the trash out after dark after that.
Yeah, I'd say today's not trash day. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's just going to pile up.
In honor of Doc. Oh, yeah, look at the time.
Look at the time. It is time to go. Mike from Abnormal says, I've covered a few where it happened in town. One lady was in town and they blamed dogs. Yeah, the thought of more and more encounters in town, I find that a little disturbing. But I tell you, if there was a time for one to be walking down the street, nobody paying any attention, it's right here on Halloween.
Yeah. But I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about that, the Black Plague of the 21st century and the human encroachment being gone for, a better part of 2 years or more.
Mm-hmm.
And these things just, like we always say, it doesn't take nature long to take back over an area. So once they took back over that territory, so to speak, then, yes, Ken, I hate on the Gamecocks. Okay. Deal with it. But anyway, once they take that territory over, they're not going to give it back up without a fight.
No, definitely not. And that's we'd spent years, pushing back the boundaries of the frontier, and it does not take nature long to start reclaiming territory.
Within a matter of 2 years or so, then you got them getting it back. So,
and now that like black bears know how easy it is to get a meal, and I think the worst thing that they've really got to worry about in town is getting hit by a car. Yeah, it's going to be hard to keep them away from a rich field of trash cans and readily available small animals.
Well, you think about you just said that we've spent the better part of however many years pushing back against this. That was some rough and tumble people that they were pushing back against. Now, I hate to say it, but people ain't as tough as they used to be back in the frontier days.
That and a lot less people hunt.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, they don't have the opposition now that they did back then.
When I was a kid, my grandma was tougher than boot leather. If something was getting into her garden, she was going to give it a seat full of buckshot. You just don't see that. And of course, you're not going to see it in town much at all, but you just don't see too many people that are willing to open up the back door and let lead fly.
That's true. I mean, just when I can't remember if my mom was pregnant with me or if she had just had me, but she lived in a little greenhouse. We called it the little greenhouse, just up at the end of the road up here. And two guys tried to break in on her. And she called my great grandpa, the one whose house I was at when I had my encounter. And they went out when she screamed out she had called the sheriff's office. They took off. Well, they got in their car and they drove across the road and went down this. They didn't know it was a dead end road. It was a dead end road. My great grandpa gets up there and he had an old 1956 Chevrolet, one of them old tanks. No, that was a 54 he had, excuse me. Pulled across that road and he had his shotgun loaded with birdshot. And they come pulling back out and said, "Get out of our way, old man." He goes, "Nah, I can't do that. Somebody just tried to break in on my granddaughter. Y'all gonna stay here till the sheriff's office gets here." Well, they pulled out a gun and started shooting at my great grandpa. He laid that shotgun with that birdshot across the hood of that 54 Chevy and blasted both of them. And it didn't kill them, but that's how they ended up catching them, because they went to Greenville Hospital because they both had a load of birdshot in them. And you know what the sheriff did? Come and shook my great grandpa's hand and gave him a certificate of appreciation. You don't see that nowadays.
No, you do not. But we need to kind of get back to that. When people were able to take care of themselves and took responsibility for their own safety, we had a lot less of that crap.
Yep. Oh, there's the troublemaker, the Nona boss. She's in trouble with the law all the time.
Yep, is squatching without a license.
Yep. I told her I was gonna have to run Ken. We're gonna have to run Nona for warrants. I think she's probably got outstanding warrants on her. We'll be in trouble for that remark, but it's okay.
I'm sure. For those, I don't want to give away the secret. I'm sure she's going to want to talk about it on her show, but let's just say there's a funny story behind that. So y'all make sure you tune in. Make sure you tune into the Nona Boss to hear that story.
If y'all want to hear that story, go watch Marty's show.
Absolutely. Well, how shall we hit the second one?
Yep, go right ahead.
This one's a little bit longer. Let me pull it over here where I don't have to crane my neck to read it. Again, we're not mentioning names. In 2006, I had a Dogman encounter in the Mississippi and Tennessee border, more close to the Tennessee side. I was 16 and my stepbrother was 18. It was summertime. We were driving back from my step-grandmother's house after a visit. We were in my stepbrother's little Cavalier and he was driving. She lives on the Mississippi-Tennessee border. Her house is on like a 10-mile stretch of farmland that her family owned. It had just rained half an hour before we left her house, and it was very foggy. It was low lying, so it was kind of hard to see what was in front of you. We were driving slow and taking our time, and it had to be around 10 p.m. when we started driving, and the moon really lit up the night, so it wasn't pitch black. And about 5 miles into the drive, we saw something standing on the edge of the road on the right side. There's a large field behind the figure, so it must have come out of that field. We were joking with each other about it being a hitchhiker, and maybe we should give them a ride. The kind of farms on the road were mostly livestock, so it's weird someone would even be out there at night. As we came up on the figure, you could tell it was standing on two legs, and it was super tall, like 9 or 10 feet, because the tree that was next to it. The closer we came, the more you can tell it wasn't human. Its face was long and wolf-like, and it had a wolf tail in the back, and its legs were bent like if you ever seen the movie Dog Soldier. That's a perfect example of what it looked like. And when we actually did come upon it, my stepbrother stopped the car in front of it and goes, "What is that?" And the creature bent down and looked into the car. I was on the passenger side, so I was face to face with this creature. I saw everything from its very large teeth and green yellow eyes and pointed ears. It had no fur on its face and chest or stomach, but there was fur on its back and tail, and little on its legs and arms. It looked like a dog with the mange, is the best way I could describe it. And it didn't do anything. It just stared into the car, but it had emotion on its face, like a human if a human was mad or sad. It kind of had a sad, tired look to it, and it felt like it was just looking into my soul. The fear that came over my body was so strong I couldn't even talk. It felt like it was forever, and we were staring at this creature when it was only like a minute or two. Finally, I snapped out of it and was yelling, "Drive, drive, drive." My stepbrother took off, and we seriously didn't say anything to each other for the rest of the ride home or even speak about what we saw. And until this day, we've never spoken of it. Now, I didn't know what a dogman was. I'd never heard of it until 2015 when I saw a group online talking cryptid animals like Bigfoot, and I'm a huge believer in Bigfoot. But when someone brought up the word dogman and was describing it, I was like, oh my God, that's what I saw. I thought I made it up. Also, ever since that happened back in '06, I felt like someone is always watching me from the outside. I don't go outside in the dark alone or near the trees at night. I live in Pennsylvania, and I would go out to Tennessee every summer for 3 months to visit my dad when I was younger. Do you think these creatures can follow you and watch you?
Whew. Mm.
What do you think, Robbie? You think they'll follow you?
Well, I want to say it was William that was talking about that, and he said that he believed that was possible. And I guess there's two schools of thought on that. If they're just an animal, then I mean, yeah, I guess it's possible.
Well, animals can track you.
Yeah, but like we've said before, you know, the term dogman was not coined till somewhere in the 1990s, right?
Right. So I think in the mid or late 90s.
So the term werewolf is what was used to describe these things. So if there's some semblance of actually them being what a werewolf is supposed to be, then this thing probably has a human form. You know, it just throwing everything out there, all, you know, forms of reality, I guess. So yeah, I mean, I would say if that's what it is and that's what's going on, then there's a distinct possibility that it could be.
Well, taking the other side of that, even if they can't shift, if they are a dog man all the time permanently, they've got to be much smarter than an average. You know, they're definitely smarter than an average dog or an average wolf. Otherwise, they would have been much easier to find. These things are very intelligent and are able to, you know, to figure things out like door handles, and we've even heard stories of them coming through dog doors. So if they're that smart, I would say they're definitely smart enough to track somebody home.
Oh yeah, well, and you know, just like you put in the Lakeview Man, you know, that was part of the myth and the lore of what Jay Matoska was telling Clark. You know, is that these things, once they view you as a threat or a challenge, then they're going to follow you.
Right.
So,
Billy Mitchum says, to what end would it track you for? What do you think? Why it would follow somebody?
well, I mean, I guess you got, depending on which avenue you're going to go down, which one you're going to say that it is. So let's start with, okay, it is a werewolf, shapeshifter, anything like that. Maybe it's an identity thing. You know, maybe it's somebody that you know that doesn't want you to figure out the secret, and it's either keeping tabs on you or waiting for an opportunity. If it's just an animal, maybe it's just a territorial thing and it feels like you've invaded its territory. I mean, you could probably scenario this out with 100 different reasons as to why something like that would follow you, and any one of them could be right. So it's just speculation, of course, but
right, absolutely. Me on my end, I would think that something that smart and that powerful tracking you, I don't think it's coming over to play cribbage. I
No,
don't I don't think he's popping by to ring the doorbell and yell and grow trick or treat.
yeah,
I think it's probably got you at least ideally on the menu.
yeah. I don't think he's filling out an application to be your new pet.
Right. Mike from Abnormal Investigation says the Palmyra Maine incident at the farmhouse. That is a great example. Those things were definitely smart. They cut off their means of escape, and they were trying to get in the house. So yeah, I think these things are very smart. Brooks has a good comment. Robbie, you want to take this one? Brooks says, "Isn't a dogman different than a skinwalker? The
Yes.
skinwalkers can change back to human, right?"
And William's in the chat, so if I butcher this one, William, correct me if I'm wrong. But a dog man basically is it is what it is. Either if you believe it's a werewolf, which is a human that turned into that form, or if you believe it's the Native American where somebody has once was a human and has went to that form and can't come back, or if it's just an animal that looks like what we consider a werewolf. However you look at that, that would be your dog man, werewolf, wolf man, that type of thing. The skinwalker is not a werewolf or a vampire, or it's not any one thing. It is just a person that has done something so heinous and so dark and evil that it just is pure evil, and it can pretty much take any kind of shape or form that it wants. Dogs, birds, wolves. I'm sure we even give you 100 more examples of things it can turn into, but it is not. And this is where Hollywood is. We talked about this before. This is where Hollywood has blurred those lines between what we know and what the movie Skinwalkers is a perfect example.
Right.
The movie was titled Skinwalkers, but it was about werewolves. That's not a skinwalker.
It's definitely not a skinwalker.
Could a skinwalker appear as a werewolf? Yeah, but is a skinwalker a werewolf or a dogman? No.
Well, when we had Wes on the other night, he was Navajo, and he didn't even want to say its name. He didn't want to use the term skinwalker at all. He referred to it as a coyote. They
Yeah, I did
firmly
notice
believe
that.
that even saying the name will give it power or even draw it to you. And like Robbie was saying, that thing is a started out life as a person, a shaman that basically went as dark as you could possibly go, so dark that they basically put a stain on their soul. They did it for power. They did it for ambition. They for just pure evil's sake, and he said that they're very difficult to stop, and the only way he knew of to permanently stop one was to find out its true name. And I guess that gives you power over it and forces it to face accountability from what what it's done. Wes was saying that to becoming a skinwalker, it makes it hard for death to find them, and by speaking their true name, it allows death to find them. So, yeah, there's a lot to the skinwalker myth that I'm not as well versed in that I would like to. And Wes is really reluctant to tell me a whole lot about it. And I get that. I totally get that. I respect that. I don't push the boundaries. But if we need to do a skinwalker show one of these nights and get Ryan Paul Tremblay on here, because that guy is top notch research when it comes to skinwalkers. So I need to reach out to him and see about getting him on, as I think that'd be a good topic just for the entire show. But as opposed to the dog man, yeah, a skinwalker could look like one, but it in the end it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, two completely, totally different entities. That's a good question though, because
It was a good question.
like we say, Hollywood is always muffing things up for.
William had a good comment.
Yeah.
Pretty much spot on.
Yeah, I guess I did it justice, William. Thanks.
Sorry, I was just catching up, see if I missed any comments. Of the two, frankly, if I had to face one in a dark alley, I'd rather deal with a Dogman. I mean, because I personally, and again,
100%.
folks, we what we talk up here, we talk theory because there is nothing concrete. Every you talk to 5 different investigators, you're going to get 5 different theories, and that's all we've got is theory until these things are proven to exist, proven to science. So my best theory is I believe that they're a flesh and blood creature. And I would much rather face a flesh and blood creature, even one that's basically a monster, than face a skinwalker because stopping that would be nigh on impossible.
Thank you, William. Although I think I'm a little old to be a Padawan, but I'll take the compliment.
Billy Mitchum said, DA, I like what you said about Kolchak, the one that could take the shape of people you trusted. That was a Rakshasa from Hindu mythology, but that's a really cool story that it would appear to you as somebody you trusted. Roxanne Delgado says, DA, did you know there's a map of Dogman sightings? There's a few. There are a few different ones floating around. Some of them have basically the same stories, but a couple of them are kind of unique. So I know about a couple of them, but if you want to send me the link to the one you know about, it might be one I haven't seen before. I wouldn't mind checking it out.
I think we overlapped one time to see how it stacked up to our. Because I think you found one time. We did an overlap of all 3: the missing 411, Bigfoot sightings, and Dogman sightings.
That's right. We did. Yeah. But, I think that Dogman and Bigfoot territory are pretty close because they require the same things. They require the same habitats to survive. JD Smooth says, do you guys think that Bigfoot and Dogman are working together in the LBL?
I honestly don't think Bigfoot and Dogman are hardly ever working together. I think they're always in competition. My personal opinion.
Yeah, same here. It'd be like, thinking that a pack of wolves and a mountain lion would work together. They're big predators. They compete for the same food sources. I just don't see them working together.
Or a big grizzly and a pack of wolves. You see them constantly, especially up in, around Canada and Alaska. They're always competing for, wolf packs trying to steal a kill that a bear's made and things like that. I don't see 2 big predators like that working in conjunction with each other.
Folks, I'm going to try to do things a little differently so we're not crowding all the what's the word I'm looking for? Affiliates in one at the very end all together. So I'm going to space them out where about every half hour we're going to do one. And since Doc can't be here, we're going to go ahead and run Doc's right now. So here's a word from Doc from Dark Angel Medical.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
And folks, if you do decide you want to pick up one of the med kits, Dark Angel Medical kits are the best in the business. You use discount code cryptid25 at checkout for 25% off your entire order. Again, that's cryptid25 at darkangelmedical.com.
FSH or
HSA and FSA.
Yes, those 3 things certified. So if you've got the ability to use those, they do take that too.
Definitely. So if you're a first responder and you're looking to get a good life-saving class, this is definitely what you need to sign up.
Yep.
And you can sign up for the classes at darkangelmedical.com. And there are online classes that you can take through the website, and as well as some of the free classes that you can take on their YouTube channel as well. So just check out Dark Angel Medical on YouTube and on darkangelmedical.com.
I'm trying, Ken. And for those of you who want to witness me, Ken, and Doc in real life, how we play off each other in the show, come to the class in Greenville in November, and you're going to get a live demonstration of it because the 3 of us are going to be together in a classroom for 2 days. It's going to be fun.
I'm really wishing I could be there
Well, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of pictures and videos for you to see.
to come back and haunt you later.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Robbie, you want to give us the next story?
Sure thing.
While you're telling that, I'm going to get myself a drink of water. I'm a little parched.
We're at the Hi, My Friend one, right? That was the next one.
I think so, yeah.
All right. Hi, my friend. I've told my encounter to my friends, blank and blank. I couldn't. You said we're not saying any names, right?
Right. Don't do the names.
So here goes to you. I was an Army Ranger who had brain injuries and PTSD. So, sir, here's my Dogman story. I will talk with you about my contact. I was at my parents' house in the Sumter National Forest, and when I just got out of the Army, I walked the property a lot, which I had done as a kid, so I knew the land. I found a cave, which was not there before I entered the Army. The opening was very narrow, so I low crawled into the hole. I had to squat. I had to squat walk about 8 to 10 feet to the end. This presented with fresh hemlock branches and bits of fur. I assume he meant once he got to the end of it, he found that. And then once he saw that, he said he hauled butt out of there thinking that it was a black bear den. And then later that night, he walked in his bedroom, which was at least 4 feet off the ground, and there was a dog at his window. The ears were pinned back with the front forepaws on his window. I effing yelled because I was startled, and it lurched back to the left and was gone. The hard packed red clay provided no tracks, but he blew it off until he recently gained knowledge of the Dogman. This happened back in 1987 in the Sumter National Forest. Thank you, DA.
Well, that one,
right?
yeah, you can mention my name. Yeah, they might have heard my name a time or two.
Once or twice.
The fact that he's, a former Army Ranger who obviously had seen combat, this guy would be somebody who would be fairly cool under fire. And I can tell by the email that it shook him up. I mean, he basically discovered that den and decided to bug out of there,
and thought he was just discovering a bear den and at first, but which would be scary enough because especially if you crawl in there and discover a sow with the cubs. So,
oh yeah, that could be a bad day right there.
But then to find out that it wasn't a bear den.
Yeah, that's a oh crap moment.
I can't wait to not ever go back there again.
No kidding. I'd mark that spot on the map just so I could avoid it. Qbot says, DA, you can really tell you're sticking with your diet. You're looking healthy. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. I went from 326 last year. Last July, I was 326 pounds, and I'm 250 as of this morning. I'm aiming to lose about another 30 pounds. Still got a ways to go, but I'm going to get there.
Yep, I now outweigh DA.
I think I outweighed you when I saw you in July. I was probably still in 270 there.
No, we were because I'm 265, so
I was probably still 270 then. I've lost quite a bit since then. Yeah,
we were close.
So what would you do, Robbie, in that situation? If you found yourself at a caved in that you thought it was just going to be a bear or something like that, and turned out that's what it was?
Well, you know what I would do. Not the smart thing or not the thing that most normal people would do. I'd be like, oh, cool, where's the camera? I got to get, I'd be in there trying to, I'm not the sharpest knife when it comes to things like that. But what I should do is like what you just said, time to get the heck out of there. But no, I mean, like I said, we're kind of wired different. So asking questions like that of us, because you'd be doing the same thing I'd be doing. Hey, we got to go let's get the plaster. We got to take cast. We got to take, where's the ruler at? Where's the tape measure? But if I was just normal me that didn't know anything about all this stuff that's out there, and I walked upon something that I thought was a bear den, I probably would get the heck out of the Dodge. Because, like I said, that's not, you don't want to come up on a bear in his den. That's any person that's been in the woods for any length of time. You've always heard those stories from old hunters. That's one of the most dangerous things you can come across is a bear in its den.
Right. You get between a mama and her cub, and it's a bad day.
Yeah.
Well, the area that you go research, the chances of you running up on something like that fairly high.
Look, Ken, just because you got to reach up for it, don't mean it's low hanging.
Billy Mitchum said he's down from 309 to 280. Hey, that's awesome, man. Keep it up. Good job. I know how hard that is. It is not an easy thing to do. We got Nimza back in the house tonight. We're really glad you're feeling up to being back with us. We've all been worried about you and praying for you.
Yeah. I saw her name roll by a couple times, and it didn't even dawn on me that she's back in the chat. Till you just said that.
Brooks says, I've got bears in my yard almost every night this summer. When Annette and I stayed up in the Smoky Mountains back in, it was in July, we had a black bear actually crawled up on the deck of the cabin we were staying in. I'd barbecued earlier that day, and it got up onto the deck and tore into the barbecue grill to lick the grease out of the grease trap.
Nimsa says she's human again.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, but I don't know if I'm ever quite human. I'm always believer that normal is a setting on the dryer. It's about as normal as I get.
I'm gonna refrain from giving Ken any more ammo.
Oh, Ken's feeling saucy tonight. Doc's not here, so he's got to pick up the slack and give you as much grief as possible.
Well, when they're both here, they almost are as tall as me together. So, I mean, they can sit on each other's shoulders.
Tactical Voltron.
I was thinking more like mini Master Blaster.
There you go. Or like the old joke about the two kids inside a trench coat trying to sneak into a movie.
I bet Ken and Doc would have done that.
I can see that. Toom says, "Da, we're far from normal." Amen, brother. No, I don't want to be. If I was normal, I don't think I'd be much of a writer. Well, the next one is kind of a multi-parter. It's actually two encounters from the same person, but they were spaced out a little bit. They said, and again, I'm going to do my best to leave names out of it. Hopefully, my mouth doesn't get ahead of my brain and spout something out. This one starts out, I was 9 and my cousin was 7. Around summertime, my cousin and I were playing around outside on my trampoline, and we got bored of playing inside the house and around the house, and we got bored out in the backyard, so we went into the woods. We went in probably a couple in, and we were going straight. Oh, sorry, I was losing my place there. We went to the left, and a couple of steps, I heard some people talking, and then just silence. And then we waited for something else to happen, and I thought I saw something about 30 to 50 yards away. I felt some weird earthquake and screaming at my cousin, and turned. Oh, that was okay. Sorry. I felt some weird like earthquake and screaming, and my cousin turned and ran for it because I was farther out than him. We ran back, and my mom was yelling for me, and and his mom was there. And I told her what my told her and my told her and my dad, and said that people were pranking us. And this was when I was 9 and my cousin was 7. Later, though, they've heard the screams and something slamming into the ground when they were little. Then later, when they said they were deathly sick, had a 104-degree temperature. Says, I went into the woods and I was recording alone. Then I walked for some time and saw a dead animal. It was a moose. And I didn't have it in the video. So I saw footprints from the dead moose, and they were 5 to 7 feet apart, and they were bigger than my cowboy boots. Bigger than the cowboy boots that I wore when I went out. But my boots are size 11, so these footprints are a little bigger than both of my boots. And I saw the footprints on the video. You can see them real well, but I think I saw the left side have 4 toes and the right side were 6 to 7 toes. That's bizarre. And I was trying to turn my phone around to me, and I accidentally hit the stop recording. And then I saw something moved in the woods and heard something from the area. And when I saw it move, it said my name, but it was mechanical like. Huh. Once in a while, you'll hear one of these stories where, people say it said their name, but it makes me wonder if that's not really a Bigfoot. If that's more, well, the Wendigo is reported as calling people's names, as is the skinwalker.
You had that in Call of the Wendigo several times when it was doing stuff like that. That's a kind of really of a.
I'm not sure that was a Bigfoot.
Yeah. Now I've heard 1 or 2 stories that people think or saying they thought they heard the Bigfoot calling their name, but few and far between as compared to like Skinwalker and Wendigo, where they've heard that kind of stuff. I think Bigfoot's more of a mimic, and it's like a parrot type thing.
I think so too.
And whereas these things are supernatural, Wendigos and Skinwalkers and things like that, where they can get into your mind and pull thoughts out, so they know what your weakness, so to speak, is. They know. I mean, just like you put in the book, when it was saying it was Margolin and it was playing on trying to get Valkyrie to open the door. I mean, it can pull those thoughts, and it knows what to say, or they, depending on which one you're talking about, know that stuff. I agree with you. I don't think that was a Bigfoot that was.
This is a little off topic, but Luis Noriega said, he says, I got you beat, DA. I was 260 in the beginning of the year. I'm down to 193. Dude, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Last time I was 193, I was a senior in high school.
I think I was probably in high school myself. No, when I was in the Army, I got down to 180. Mike over at Abnormal Investigations says, I've witnessed the name calling, and my mom and her family in the 50s heard name calling from it also. Do you think it was a Bigfoot type creature or something else? Because once in a while you'll hear stories about Bigfoot sightings where there's a language or words involved. Like the one they called was it the Zoobies out in California, where the guy heard it going, here, chickie, chickie, trying to call his chickens. So I'm wondering if it was mimicking or if it had heard, like somebody call their name before. Like if you when I was a kid, when we lived out in the sticks, my mom would just come to the back door at dusk and start hollering names. And we knew it was time to get our butts home. I'm wondering if that was the fact that it knew their name, or it had heard it and was just mimicking the call.
I tend to believe that like I said, I think it's a mimic. Because there again, we're talking about Bigfoot creatures. We believe it's just a flesh and blood creature. I don't think it has any supernatural powers. Like I said, I don't think. So, if I was going to say that something did do that, I would lean more towards Wendigo, Skinwalker, something like that. Maybe even some of the things like some of the old Irish things like banshees and things like that. You know, that was some of the things that they would do is calling or sirens, calling people's names to get them to go. I don't know if we have anything in this country that that's akin to a siren.
Well, we've got Irish mythology. If I'm in mind, if I wish Noah was here because he could pronounce it a lot better than I do. His Gaelic is much better than mine. But it's a type of creature much like a banshee. But I believe it's called the Banaihi. The Banaihi. It's referred to as the washerwoman, and she was a portent of death. That people would not only hear their name, but they would see her like she was knelt down washing clothes, and it was usually the death clothes of the person that was supposed to die. So yeah, there are other stories where something would call your name, but yeah, again if it's a Bigfoot creature, I'm wondering. And again, I don't. This is just theories, folks. We're just spitballing, taking our best guess at it. Your theories are just as good as ours, but I kind of think it's probably just mimicking the sound. I again got no evidence on that. You know, that's just my hunch. But these things are smart, so maybe they do. Maybe they are capable of learning our language.
Thanks, Ken. Got you. I never figured that out without you. I don't know what I'd do without you, buddy.
Well, the problem is he explained one word with a bigger word. Come on, Ken, do better, man.
I'm gonna be the harbinger or something, Ken.
You gotta lock him in the cooler and set on it.
Lock him in a pencil box.
We love you, Ken. I don't know. Still, I know I'm kind of going back to this, but yeah, it's entirely possible that they understand words, they understand the language. If you look at the Sierra sounds, when they had the Navy cryptolinguistics department analyze that, they said it had all the hallmarks of a language, but it was, it had peaks and valleys above and below what humans were capable of producing. So that would indicate that if that was truly a recording of a Bigfoot, which again, peaks and valleys above and below what a human can produce, that leads you to think, well, it's something that's speaking a language and it ain't human. To quote Jesus.
Yeah. Nims, I wouldn't fit in a playpen. I'm sorry.
Get you guys in a Rock'em Sock'em Robots fight.
I love you, Ken.
Brooks says they say dogs can understand words like a 3-year-old. Yeah, my dog Harley, he's got a pretty impressive vocabulary. There are some words that we either spell or just avoid using the word in conversation, because if you use the word treat or outside, he just flips out. And he knows damn good and well what those words are.
Before I had Quinna, my canine, I knew dogs were smart. But until I had her, I didn't realize how smart they were. Like, to let her, for her to let me know when it's time to go out, like, you need to go take a break. And I would say, do you need to take a BRAKE? Nothing. I'd say, do you need to take a BREAK? And she'd pop right up. She could freaking spell. And knew the difference between brake, like car brakes, or like time to go take a break, time to go. Because I could spell BRAKE all day long. She'd sit there and look at me. But as soon as you spell it the other way,
dogs are very smart. And so, I guess that kind of adds to the discussion there. If dogs can learn certain words, and if these things are capable of language, then maybe they really do understand what they're saying. Maybe they're not just mimicking your name. Maybe they've listened and heard that name and have associated that with calling you out. So that's, I don't know which is more terrifying. I don't know which scares me more, that it's actually calling me out by name, or if it's just making a sound that that it has picked up and heard.
Well, and again, this was one of those cheesy B movies, and it was probably one of the cheesiest of cheesy B werewolf movies. But you know me, I've seen probably 99% of them, but I'd never seen this concept before. And I don't know if anybody's seen it out there in the chat, but it was called Big Bad Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've said like Bad Moon, when the guy was mid transformation, he could still talk. But once he transformed, he couldn't talk. But this took it a little step further. He could still talk and have, I mean, just like he was just like had these little snide comebacks and these little snappy one-liners while he was fully transformed. And he was more of a wolf man than he was an actual werewolf. But it was just a concept that I'd never seen hardly in any other live action movie. It's just the werewolf having conversations with people he was going after, just almost Freddy Krueger-esque, you know, in the way he taunted and talked to him. It was just,
playing with his food.
Yeah, it was, but it was an interesting concept. But it's kind of the same thing. You like, what's scarier, sitting there looking at something like that that's coming after you, or sitting there looking at something like that that's coming after you, and it's telling you what it's going to do to you in snappy one-liners and things like that in Freddy Krueger style. I mean, that's just like kind of terrifying.
Mike says, as long as your dog's not walking bipedal in the front room at night.
Yeah, I knew Toombs would have seen it. If anybody out there would have seen it, I knew it would have been Toombs. And am I right, Toombs? It was a funny movie, but the concept of that is kind of terrifying.
John Houchin says, I've briefly seen a hyena-like Dogman in 2003. I would love to hear the story, dude. We might even share it on the show if you didn't care. But yeah, if you want to write up, I think you mentioned you were retired law enforcement. Write me up an incident report and send it to me at daroberts@daroberts.net. And I would love to read it, and we'd share it on the air if you didn't mind.
Penny wanted to know the name of the Bigfoot game that we play. It's Bigfoot.
It's just called Bigfoot. It's on Steam. And hopefully we're going to be getting a game together of that here in the next few days. Wanted to talk to Robbie about that.
It just got a big update, so it should be a lot more fun.
Yeah. Noah was wanting to stream that before Halloween and stream that for his channel. And I told him, I said, well, we can get it set up. Me, you, and maybe even Doc could play. And that would just be a hoot and a half, us running around getting massacred by that damn Bigfoot. That game is terrifying. I love that game, though. It's addictive, but it's scary at the same time.
I think we got within 2 minutes, we were both dead. I mean,
yeah, that thing just massacred us. And
we had it on, because we really hadn't played it that much. We had it on the easiest level just so we could figure it out, and it did not matter. But I know a few more tricks now that we didn't know that we can try that I have experimented, shall we say, and they do work.
Well, we definitely need to play that again. It's been a hot minute since we played.
Yep.
I think that'd be fun to play, as a show. Well, not necessarily one of our regular shows, but like do a special night where we're playing Bigfoot, getting massacred by this thing.
I need to get me another webcam so I can, because remember what we were having to do, I was having to just pull my boom mic over there because I couldn't play on screen because I can't play it on this computer. So I have to figure, maybe Noah's got some ideas of how I could work that out.
Nimza says play Surgeon Simulator. I've got like no interest in being a surgeon, so that one doesn't hold a whole lot of appeal for me. But yeah, Meg's right, John. Any encounter is important because it's not necessarily the huge details that always matter so much, which the huge details are great. But what we look for across multiple reports is those little details that help us link behavior. Kind of like if you're profiling a criminal, you would look at multiple crimes to look for the little things that show the signature. And I think it's those little details that are really going to help us document these things. Of course, the big details are important. Like physical descriptions and things like that. But those little behaviors that a lot of times get overlooked, those are, I think they're critically important. And as Mike over at Abnormal Investigations has pointed out, I also think knowing the time of year and time of the month that these things are active is important. As I think phase of the moon has a lot to do with their hunting patterns.
And to answer your question, Penny, I've played Altered Beast, but I don't know if I've ever played The Beast Within.
I don't think I've played that either. I don't play a whole lot of games, but that Bigfoot game is pretty addictive.
I'd never played it until DA recommended it, and I downloaded it, and he and I played it a few times. I'm like Doc though. I like Call of Duty and things like that.
I do too. I like those first person shooter ups, but that Bigfoot game, the first time I played it, it just creeped me the hell out. I played it by myself, and of course I died, but I died a lot. But it was just really so freaking creepy.
I survived 4 days the last time I played by myself. So
wow, you must have done a lot of running and hiding.
Yeah, I did, but it's doing what I don't want to spoil it on here, but after the show, I'll tell you what we didn't know that I know now, that if there's two of us, I think we can do it.
Roxanne Delgado says the phase of the moon also affects people. That it does. Ask any first responder how they feel about working the night of a full moon.
That's where the term lunatic came from.
Yeah. I used to look at the calendar and go, think I can get a vacation day for the full moon.
Yeah, me and my partner dealt with a lunatic this morning. First call of the day, 5:45, and he was on a different planet. Let's just put it that way. He was high on mushrooms. He was hallucinating out his rear end. I pulled up and stepped out of the car, and he goes, "My general is here," and I'm like, "Who the heck you talking to?"
Maybe you knew Josh Dalton.
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, we are coming up on the top of the hour. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Scallywag before we jump into the next story?
Sure thing. As you know, we support our first responder owned companies, and Scallywag Tactical is like Dark Angel Medical is a veteran owned company, small to medium range company. I mean, but makes some of the best folding knives, hunting knives, fixed blade knives, kitchen knives, fillet knives that you can hope to get. A lot of y'all in the chat have gotten them. I've had this one over a year, and it's still just as sharp as it was when I first got it. DA's got a bunch of them. He got his new one the other day that he likes. This is the Jolly Roger. And if you've read the books, you know Clark carried, maybe not the blue one, but Clark carries a Jolly Roger. He also carries a privateer. And the bounty and the gunner's mate from the books, the boarding axe. There's a reason that those blades are in the books, because we all use them. We like them. It's not, we're just throwing it out there because it's not nice. We do our due diligence, and we look heavily into them before we decide that it's something that we want to support. And I believe that's the best way to be, other than just randomly having stuff out there just to have it out there. If you believe in something that you're using, it's going to come through, and you're going to be better for it. And that's what we feel. Like Doc and I always say, these knives they'll cut you three ways: long, deep, and continuous, because they come sharp, they stay sharp. Matter of fact, Wes, who was on the show the other night, I love when we get testimonials from people. Wes skinned out an entire deer,
fully field dressed it
with one. Is the sailor assisted folder? With the sailor assisted folder, and only had to touch it up one time during that. Now, anybody out there in the chat who's ever been a hunter and has ever field dressed anything knows that cutting through hide, besides cardboard, will dull your knife quicker than anything else ever. And to go through and field dress an entire deer with one knife and only have to touch it up once, that's amazing. That's just, I mean, it is what it is. And are there other knives out there that'll do that? I'm sure there probably are. But are there other knives that are going to do that out there that that are only going to cost you what these knives cost you? Probably not.
Did you know the boarding axe and the gunner's mate are on sale right now? The cheapest I've ever seen them.
If I had the money, I would be ordering me a gunner's mate and put me a nice big engraving of that on it. But sorry, don't have the. I've been wanting to get. I had the money one time, and I can't remember who got one and got the one I was going to get in the chat. Somebody
beat you to it.
Yeah, somebody beat me to it.
One of the blemished.
Yep.
Well, there aren't any of them on the blemished blade, but that's regularly like a $300 knife on sale for $149 right now.
Yeah.
And is, well, I'll grab mine and show it off. I mean, I talk about them in the books all the time, but this knife is just freaking incredible.
Yes, it is.
And heavy. I mean, look how thick this thing is.
One day.
We'll make it happen, Robbie.
Anyway, and Steve has one of the better stories that I've ever heard with that. I think it was a mini jack he had. Was that the one?
Yeah, no. The one he broke the tip off of was one of these.
Okay, privateer.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve breaks the tip off his privateer, sends you're funny, Ken. I am thick. Breaks the tip off of it, sends Craig an email, and after Craig kind of enlightened him on proper usage of cutlery.
You want to pry something, get a prying stick. Don't use a good knife.
Yep. But Craig took the knife back, reground it, resharpened it, and sent it back to him. He didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Kershaw,
that's customer service.
Spyderco, any of those things are not they wouldn't do any of that stuff because you're just a number to them. They don't care. If you tell them, I'll never buy your stuff again, they're like, okay, well, I got 300 people behind you that are going to buy. They don't care. Craig wants your business. He wants to keep your business, and he made a customer for life with Steve. I'm pretty sure that they made a customer for life with Wes because he seemed to be really impressed.
Yeah, he said he's going to be ordering a few. This one here, the Jolly Roger, is also on sale right now. You can pick these up for I think about $20 a piece.
No, that's Sailor System Folder. That's $15.
Right,
which is another good knife, really good knife. Which I've got Jolly Roger, I've got Orca, and I've got the Sailor Assisted Folder. Love those knives. I've also got the Dew Claw, which is it gone now, or they still have any?
No, they still have some in stock, but when it's out, it's out.
Yeah,
Dew Claw will not be back.
So if you want you a good camp knife, a good everyday, or around the camp, or even in the shop or anything like that, if you want to, grab yourself a Dew Claw because I took it camping with me. About 4 months ago when I went out with Steve and Jesse, and I was thoroughly. I mean, because the thing is so thick and heavy. I mean, you can use it as. I hammered my tent stakes in with it, and didn't even put a mark on it. But it's so freaking heavy, you can do that, and cut anything that I need. It's amazing. All the blades are amazing. So go on over to Scallywag. Check out the blemish blades, and blemish blades, don't let that scare you. Most of the time, it's just
Dew
Claw. Yep,
it's as thick as the gunner's mate. It really is.
Handy little knife. But go over to check out the blemish blades. Don't let that name fool you. Most of the time, it's just the box that's messed up. DA's got one knife that's got a little minute scratch on it. If he doesn't point it out to you, you probably never even see it. I
wouldn't even notice.
So
I the only reason I found it is I went active. I'm like, okay, I'm going to find, because the box was in fine shape. I'm like, I'm going to find what's blemish about this knife. And I hunted. And I'm like, oh, there's a little scratch right there.
And I think that's Craig and the way he is. He wouldn't sell that to somebody brand new if it had some kind of little surface defect on it like that.
Right.
It's not anything that's going to affect the integrity of the blade. It's not like it's a cold shut or anything like that, or a void or any of that kind of. It was just a scratch on the surface coating. That's it. So check that out, and then when you go to the checkout, add code DA Roberts in at checkout and get yourself an extra 10% off. That does stack up with the deals on the blemished blades. Tell them we sent you. Get yourself a good blade. Make sure you got your Dark Angel medical kit when you get them, because they are sharp and they will cut you 3 ways, long, deep, and continuous. Remember that. DA and I cut ourselves on camera with these things, accidentally, of course. But
yeah, definitely remember on even it does apply even on the blemish blades. Use discount code DA Roberts 10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order, and their shipping is pretty damn fast.
Yep, and that's all we got to say about that.
That's right. I believe you're up, brother.
Ooh, let's see. Which one did we ended on that one? Get my glasses on.
I think the one it starts
When I was a child.
When I was a child.
Okay. All right.
I believe that's the last one of the short ones.
Yeah, I think it is. When I was a child, I was walking from my step-grandparents' house back to my house, which was on a sand 2-track. I don't know what a sand 2-track is, but
Me either.
through
Or
Fern,
a 2-lane, like the ruts where a vehicle cuts.
maybe. It just says a sand 2-track. I just didn't know what that was. If anybody in the comments know what that is, let us know.
Well, I know from mountain biking before I hurt myself. Just a single trail is called a single track. And
maybe that's what it is. Look at me, DA. Do I look like I ride a bicycle?
I got you.
I'm not going to know that. But anyway, I digress. Ken, digress means you go back the wrong way, just so you know. Okay, I'm going back in the right direction now. Just had to make sure he knows those big words. The 2-track through fern meadows with saplings and like an old fence, basically old farm fields that have been overgrown. But as I was walking, I noticed that the sapling on the left side of the road had rustled and being inquisitive, an inquisitive 10-year-old, like I wanted to go see what it was, because I was very good at sneaking up on deer and rabbits and pheasants and all the little creatures of Caucasa. Is that how that's pronounced? Michigan? Caucasca?
Kalkaska, I guess.
Caucasca, Michigan. And at that age, I was a noisy kid. As I approached, I got closer and closer, which was very easy for a 60-pound child. I couldn't see an animal, and I thought it was a pile of. I'm assuming he means a pile of logs, but it says a pile of dogs. So we'll go with a pile of logs.
Like I said, I didn't edit any of those. I just copied and pasted them into the document. I probably should have went through and read through them real close before I sent them to you.
Yeah, it is what it is. He come up on a pile of dogs. Okay, we'll just go with that. I mean, I've seen a pile of dogs before.
I'm finding a pile of dogs in the woods is a little more disturbing than a pile of logs.
True. Unless you've ever been coon hunting. If you've been coon hunting, you've seen a pile of dogs.
True.
But, Ken, I digress again. Remember that word. Come up on a pile of dogs, and all I could make out was what looked like a giant pile of rugs. So we went from a pile of dogs to a pile of rugs of different colors. So maybe it was a pile of dogs.
Maybe it was.
The stories you read. And all I could make out was what looked like a pile of giant rugs of different colors. As I was getting closer and closer, I couldn't make out any definitive form. I just kept getting closer. And as I got about 30 yards away, the form shifted, and I gasped loudly, and an arm shot up and grabbed the sapling that it was laying against and bent the sapling straight towards me, smacking me in my face with it and scaring the life out of me. I turned and ran home as fast as I could, was scolded and grounded by my mother for being on my neighbor's property. She thought I was messing with them, and she didn't believe me that I'd seen some kind of weird animal. And to this day, I really don't know what it was. I never saw its face. I didn't see its feet, but the palm of the hand was brown, and I remember that vividly brown hair sun bleached in spots to red, and hairy leaf covered arm with light brown palms. Hopefully, this is concise and easy to read. I have maybe that's it. He said he has a TBI, so that would make sense why it's kind of back and forth a little bit. And I don't always write things the way I'm supposed to. Well, you wrote them. That's all that matters.
Absolutely.
I think this one split up into 2 encounters too. You want me to keep going?
Yeah, might as well.
So he had another encounter with a buddy while he was fishing, where he had something screaming at us as it moved off down the river, and also have a photo and a footprint me and another buddy found at a trap we set for groundhogs. There was eating his neighbor's garden, and mind you all his tomatoes were getting stolen during this period of time, but no tracks in the loose soil, wasn't disturbed, and thought it was a person, but followed the trail and found a print. It dwarfed my friend's foot, and he wore a size 14. Nothing really happens around here like that anymore, but about 20 years ago.
Here's the picture that goes with that print.
Okay, you actually got it.
Yep.
That is a pretty big print.
It's a big old print. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Let me find where I was at. And he wears size 14s. Nothing really happens around here anymore. 20 years ago, about 20 years ago, there was something living in the river bottoms, which is, I guess, now an industrial area here in Gradiot County. I've been a river rat my entire life, and if there was water, I was there, and I spent nearly every day for the last 20 years on the banks going hiking and exploring, and I've encountered some strange things out there, and especially for a mentally ill man that stole my spawn sacks, which still had the fish, the small fish. Okay, God, let's say that. Don't know what that means, but he was fishing for steelhead. We call them old horny heads down here, but the same thing. Fishing to have rocks thrown at me while I thought I was alone, to strange eye reflections at heights and widths that leave me scratching my head. I'm a fisherman, not a Bigfoot researcher. It just so happens catfish and Bigfoot seem to run at the same times. As the fish are at around 3 a.m. at most experiences I've had are around 3 a.m. as well. So,
well, late at night does seem to be a pretty common time. It's when their night vision is the best and ours is the worst.
Call it magic hour.
Yep. Sorry, I was trying to catch up on some of the comments.
Yep, me too.
Ken was giving you grief.
That's why I want to go back and see. I was reading, so I couldn't see what he said. All right, Ken, I'm hold that thought, buddy. Stand by one.
I really liked that they sent a picture of the track with that, because that
Yeah.
was a big track.
It's very big. I'd say that's probably in the neighborhood of 18 to 20 inches.
Well, that'd be my guess. I think they said that the first person's foot was a size 14.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big old foot just by itself. Sorry. Nimsa says 2024 cage match, Ken versus Robbie. That's on pay-per-view, definitely.
I don't want the little fella to hurt me.
Climb you like a spider monkey.
And
A
he
lot of
would.
these stories have a similarity of theme, though. You know, a lot of these encounters are happening late at night. They're happening in very rural areas. Although, you know, the occasional one that's popping up inside of town, um, definitely a little more disturbing, at least as far as I'm concerned, because I for one like to go walking in through our neighborhood in the evening, and I don't even mind walking at night. I mean, it's generally pretty peaceful. Um, Although the crime in Springfield's gotten bad enough that I, I don't walk too much after dark. But you know, it's in the last few years it's really gotten bad. But when I lived in a smaller town, it was not uncommon for me to go out and walk after dark or in the rain. Um, didn't bother me a bit. There's something soothing about it. But to hear these things coming into towns, even bigger towns, that's pretty worrisome.
Yep.
Roxanne says, the last time I was that way, me and my mom went to go see the old farm, and she took me through there many years ago. It was only 4 small buildings all falling apart. It was a very long time ago. Grizzly says, any Canadian Dogman content? There are stories of Dogmen out of Canada. They don't seem be as common as Dogman sightings in the United States, and I don't think that's because they're not there. I just think Canada is so sparsely populated that there's a lot of that habitat that they're just not running into people. If you look along the Trans-Canadian Highway, you might go 100 150 miles without running into a town. And that is some thick timber. And there's so many people that go missing along that Trans-Canadian Highway. And strangely, a lot of them are Native American. Well, they call them First Nations in Canada. But a lot of First Nations people go missing along that, especially women go missing along that Trans-Canadian Highway. Now, I'm not saying they call it the Highway of Tears. I'm not saying that it's cryptid. I'm not saying it's not. But there's so many people that go missing up there. You would think the Canadian government would be paying a lot more attention to it, because even if a small percentage of it is cryptids, that's still too many. That's people that are getting taken by these things. Roxanne says, I saw a picture where a dog man going through a village in Brazil. I think I've seen that footage. I'm not quite sure what to make of it. The problem is there's so much hoax crap going around anymore. We thought we'd had a really good Sasquatch video released just a few weeks ago, taken from a train in Colorado, and it turned out that whole thing was just a PR stunt. So I'm really skeptical of video anymore.
And taking that a step further, to build on what you said, we know that was a hoax. We know that was that had me and you both and Doc scratching our heads saying,
"Oh yeah,
wow,
yeah," because its behavior was good.
Mm-hmm.
The way it was using adaptive camouflage techniques, it crouched down and stopped moving, which whether that was intentional or by accident on the part of the person that was wearing the suit, it fit some of our ideas. So
Yep.
Doc and Robbie and I were scratching our head on that one.
But that's the kind of the crux of the situation that we're in now. is because technology is so advanced that you can make stuff that looks so real now. It's hard, like you just said, it's hard to figure out the real stuff from the hoax stuff. Now, it's hard to trust any still photograph anymore.
That's a fact. Yeah. Chris Cirque says, I've had some sightings here in Northeast Pennsylvania. I would love to hear the sightings, man. If you didn't mind writing them up, I would love to read them. And we might even talk about them on the show if you don't care. Just send them to me at daroberts@daroberts.net. Or if you prefer to mail them, you can send them to me through to my P.O. box. Toombs, if one of you guys would throw up the contact again, Chris, you can reach me at this contact information that should be popping up here in just a second. Nope, it's already up. There we go. But yeah, if you would like to share those encounters, I would love to read them. We'd love to talk about them on the show. Just send them to me at the email address there, or again, if you prefer to write them out, you can mail them to me at the P.O. box there. David Neal says that's pretty fishy with all those missing people, but no one looking into it. Either they know something is going on, or they're looking the other way, hoping the missing people will be forgotten. I think there's a certain amount of it, and I might aggravate some of our Canadian cousins, but I think a lot of it is they're just not investigating a lot of the First Nations. There are so many First Nations people that go missing, and they're really not investigating it the way they should. This should be a major investigation. So either, yeah, they know what's taking them and they're not wanting to go after it, or they're just not putting the resources into it they should. And I think that they definitely need to look into this more, because it's not one or two people. Over the last 30 years, it's like over 100 people. I couldn't even tell you the exact number, but it's a lot of people have gone missing along this highway over the last 20, 30 years.
Well, I mean, that's no different than we've talked about the transient population, that who knows how many of them that live in, these little tent cities in the woods that we don't know anything about and things like that. How many of them go missing every year that we don't even know about because nobody's there to report them? They don't have anybody to report them.
Exactly. And to be honest, and I'm not trying to sound bad, but as a cop, if somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to report so-and-so missing. He's a homeless guy that's usually around this area." Yeah, we'll take the report, but it's a homeless guy. It's a transient population. You don't even have an address to start looking. Odds are really good they just moved on. We don't know. So you really don't have much to go on to investigate. Roxanne says, have there been any sightings of Bigfoot or Dogman at Pomme de Terre Lake? Yes, actually quite a few Bigfoot sightings in that area. There was one down near, I'm trying to remember the name of the campground. I used to go up there fishing all the time. But a lady reported that one of them tried to get in the sliding glass window on the back of her house.
You see Northwoods?
No, I was looking at open coloring books.
If my ex was ever abducted by a cryptid, she wouldn't be gone for long. She'd be returned.
Open coloring books is a bit of both. No country cares about missing natives, and that is pathetically sad. I mean, if I was a cop in that area, you can bet your ass I would be putting every resource I could put into investigating these disappearances. I know Robbie and I'd be looking for any opportunity to get out in the woods and look anyway, so that would just be an excuse to get paid to do it. We would be out in those woods all the time.
Yep.
There was another comment I was trying to. Penny Van, she said, reports of dogmen that look like hyenas confuse the poo out of me, though. A hyena is not a dog / canid. It isn't related to dog or cats. Why would dogmen look like them? I've thought about that one. I really have. And there have been quite a few sightings of what they referred to as hyena-like dogmen. And the hyena have a blunter, wider snout, and again, you're right, they're not canids at all. I'm wondering if what they're referring to as the hyena type might be a misidentification of a gugway.
But think about in
But that's
Peru.
just my thought.
Think about in Peru and places like that. There's stories of were jaguars. That's not a canid. That's that's feline. So I mean, I think when you start looking at stuff like that, that's going more into maybe the supernatural than what you and I are actually look at and talk about as a dogman or werewolf, whatever you want to call it. And I know that's kind of a catch-22 when you say werewolf, because dogman most people consider as a cryptid, as an animal, flesh and blood animal, and a werewolf would be more supernatural. But we didn't have that. It's kind of that circular reasoning pattern that you can get yourself wound up in. So you got to define the borders of what you're going to talk about. Are you going to talk about something that's a flesh and blood animal? And if that be the case, then could any type of animal have something like that, like a hyena or a jaguar or a wolf, dogs, any of that thing? Could they have something that resembles that, or could it be just like you said, a misidentification of a gugway?
Your guess is as good as mine. That's just my best theory. Penny Vance says, I think many of these creatures of dark magic and shapeshift. That would explain all the variances. It could. That's one thing Robbie and I have said from the jump is that, we have never denied the existence of what people refer to as the woo. We've never said, these things can't travel into dimensions, or we just look for more physical explanations. And when we exhaust those, that's when we'll move into more uncharted territory.
Well, I think what people describe as a woo, I think you and I would look at that and say that's more of a supernatural realm.
Right.
Because if you've got something like a skinwalker or something like that truly does have some sort of magic, then the possibility of going into portals and things like that is not really that far of a jump.
Right.
But I believe there's more than just animals out there. Obviously, there are supernatural things. I mean, I haven't witnessed any of them, but you've had supernatural encounters.
I've seen full body apparitions that scared the living crap out of me.
That right there shows and tells you that there's more out there than just flesh and blood animals. Now, what we talk about when we talk about Bigfoot, we believe that that's just a flesh and blood animal of some type, but there are more things out there than just that. And so many people lump everything into that one category of, it's all, cryptids, because we don't know what a cryptid is truly. So everything gets lumped into that one box. And I believe there's way more than one box out there that describes all this stuff.
Don Donaldson said, could they be mistaking hyena with a jackal? Maybe, but the two really don't look anything alike.
No, jackal is more like that. To me, that's like taking a pit bull and a greyhound. They're both dogs, but they look 100% different. Whereas a pit bull would have that more broad, blunted snout like a hyena would, even though a hyena is not a canid. I understand that. Whereas a jackal would look more of that long, pointed greyhound type feature. Still may be the same thing or the same type of thing, with it completely and totally different. I don't know how you could look at something like a hyena and mistake that for a jackal.
Robbie, would you mind doing me a favor?
What's that?
Would you talk about Brock blades for just a moment? I really need to step across the hall. I've been chugging water.
Thank you. I'll talk about Brock blades.
I will be right back.
Go ahead. So, talk about my brother Ken from Brock Blades. I've been to Ken's shop. Ken has a really good little setup at his house. He's also lifetime, well, not lifetime, but most of his life, police officer. his adult life. Just neighboring county from me. Great guy. He makes his own blades in his shop behind his house. And whereas, like DA always says, with Scallywag Tactical, where you order this Jolly Roger and another Jolly Roger, they're going to be exactly alike. No two blades that Ken makes are identical because they're handmade. He puts a lot of time and a lot of effort into it. I don't have one yet to show like they normally do, and Ken and I are going to remedy that, hopefully. But he's got a really good setup. He takes care of his customers. It's like Craig. You're not just a number to him. You're somebody that he's going to try to make sure you get what you want. If you go to brockblades.com and order, you can order what's something that's there on the website, or if there's something that you want that's not there on the website, you can email him and he can work something out with you. Put code cryptid10 in when you do place your order and you get 10% off. And he makes some really good blades. He actually makes a few other things other than just blades. So check him out on his website, brockblades.com. Just if you are an outdoorsman or you know somebody's an outdoorsman with holidays coming up, it's a great time to get something like that, because a handmade blade is something a lot of people that are outdoorsmen, hunters, first responders, that's something that they really will cherish and will mean a lot to them. So there we go. I don't have one to show.
Sorry,
which
my teeth was floating.
As a matter of fact, I do need to get with you, Ken, quick. Maybe if nothing else, just to borrow one, because I just found out today that we may have some members of Chicago PD's Scottish band coming and playing in our Christmas parade. Our
that
chief
would be cool.
You know the stories I've told you about my chief and all the connections he's got with everybody in the country. He's made friends with a bunch of people from Chicago PD. They're coming down to play in our Christmas parade, and we're having our Christmas party right after the parade, and they're coming to hang out with us at our Christmas party. So I asked Chief, I said, hey, because he said they're full regalia. I said, do they have any skein doos? And Chief looked at me funny like, how the heck do you know what that is? So might need to get something there, Ken.
And folks, make sure you use discount code cryptid10 when you check out, or if you order a custom blade, make sure that you mention that you heard about brockblades.com through our channel, and he'll make sure you get your 10% off your custom order as well. Ken's an awesome dude. He loves to heckle Robbie, which I always find hilarious, and yeah, we're proud to be an affiliate for Ken. So good, go if you want a great gift. You can't go wrong with a custom knife. Well, we're coming to the segment where I've got the two lengthy stories. Now, let me give you a little bit of background on these. These are stories I've been sitting on for a while. One of them one of the stories I've known for a very long time, since back before I was married. And that's 30 years ago. I knew this guy growing up. Again, not going to mention any names. I was actually friends with his son and wound up deer hunting with this guy for a number of years. He's passed away now, and he was pretty reluctant to tell the story at all. And one night I'll just explain more in a minute, but we were sitting around and he decided to tell us the story, and I got to thinking about it and decided I was going to share it, especially, since it's right here at Halloween, and I got to thinking about him a lot here lately. And the other one was told to me by a game warden. And I can't share his information because he is still a game warden and doesn't really want everything bandied about. So, but the incident happened years ago. So he said it's probably safe to talk about it, but again, don't be dropping his name. So, let's get to those. The first one I'm calling the game warden's tale. And I wrote these out and so I would just be able to read them verbatim. Robbie, can you keep an eye on the comments, because I won't even have that screen up. We'll have you and Noah checking comments.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be reading this from what I wrote out, so I wouldn't miss anything. The man that told me this story said I could share it, but asked to remain anonymous. For this story, for our intents and purposes, let's just call him Tim. It's not his real name, but that's what we're going to call him. Tim worked for the Missouri Department of Conservation along the Missouri-Arkansas border, and did for a long time. In fact, he's still with them. And this is as close to his own story and his own words as I could recall. I wrote this from notes and filled out details that I remembered. He said, I'll read it as if he's narrating it, because that's the way I wrote it down. He says, I've been a state employee for the last 25 years, 15 of that as an agent investigating and prosecuting poachers on state land. During my time, people joked about Bigfoot, and we even used to scare campers and newly graduated agents with scary campfire stories of giant hairy monsters in the Mark Twain National Forest. But honestly, I'd never seen anything, and I didn't really believe it was out there. But that all changed one day late in August of 2005. So I was investigating allegations of long-term poaching by a man we'll call Tom. I've known Tom for a long time, having been a game warden in the area where he lived for many years. He'd spoken to me quite a few times when checking in legally obtained deer during season. However, we knew he was harvesting deer out of season, but we couldn't prove it. I'd been trying to catch him at home so we could search his freezer for illegally obtained venison, but I could never catch him there. Finally, I managed to find his wife and confronted her about the poaching. She immediately broke down crying and admitted that they had been keeping themselves fed by illegally harvesting deer and other wildlife. I knew the family was dirt poor and I didn't want to ruin them financially, but it still had a job to do. That's when she told me something that really caught my attention. She told me where he'd been hunting recently and then he hadn't returned home in several days. She was worried something had happened to him and asked if I could find him and bring him home. She gave me the exact location and I agreed to try and find him. It was early enough in the day that I knew I could get to the location with plenty of daylight left to search for Tom. I left and called the office, letting them know where I was going and what I was planning to do. They asked if I needed another agent to back me up, but I declined. In retrospect, I wish I hadn't done that, but I wasn't expecting trouble. It took me just over an hour to get to the location south of Koshkonong, Missouri. It was close to the Arkansas state line, but well within Missouri, so I had no concerns about jurisdiction. However, if he fled into Arkansas, all I had to do was wait for him to return to his vehicle or contact the Arkansas authorities to pick him up when he came out of the woods. Tom wasn't a violent man, so I wasn't expecting him to fight. I figured he'd just give up as soon as I confronted him. He was pushing 70 and had a bad leg. He wasn't exactly a flight risk or a physical threat. I arrived in the area and found the old logging road he'd used to get back into the woods. It was right where his wife had said it would be. The road was rutted and overgrown, but not impassable. I had a good four-wheel drive, and I'd been through much worse. A mile or so into the woods, I spotted his red Ford 4x4. It was an old truck, and I recognized it instantly because the right front quarter panel didn't match the rest of the truck. It was green and made the truck pretty easy to identify. I pulled up beside the truck and waited and exited my vehicle. The truck wasn't locked, and there was a small campsite just in front of it. The tent was unzipped, but no one was inside it. The sleeping bag was unrolled, and there was a backpack setting next to it. There was a fire pit, but the coals were long cold. From the look of it, there hadn't been a fire in a few days. I started to get a bad feeling that something had happened to Tom. I was concerned he might have fallen or had a heart attack out here without anybody to help him. I began searching the campsite for tracks, hoping to get some idea of where he might be. There were 3 trails leading out of the camp, and they had all been used within the last week. I was looking at boot prints and froze when I saw something I didn't expect. I saw a track that had to be 18 inches long, completely covering one of his boot prints. The odd part was that it looked like a bare foot. I figured somebody had to be messing with me. The most recently used trail led off to the west, and I started following it. About 100 yards from the camp, I saw what had once been a deer stand. It was a metal climbing stand and had been attached to a large walnut tree. It had been ripped off the tree and twisted up like a pretzel, then smashed against the trunk. A few feet away was a lever-action Marlin 30-30 that had been bent in half. The lever was still extended and the chamber was empty. Whatever had happened here, Tom hadn't gone down without a fight. A knot was beginning to form in the pit of my stomach. I took out my phone, intended to call for backup, and noticed I didn't have any signal. I cursed quietly and started to reach for my radio and realized I hadn't grabbed it either. It was still in the charger on the center console of my truck. It suddenly occurred to me that I hadn't even brought my rifle. That meant my only defense was a buck knife and a Glock 17 with 2 extra magazines. That's when I noticed the entire area was dead quiet. Not like the quiet that most people experience. The only sound was the wind gently rustling through the leaves. That's it. It was unnaturally quiet, and I felt panic welling up in my gut. I wanted to break and run for the truck, but my knowledge of predators stopped me. I knew that would incite an attack. I didn't know if it was a cougar, a bear, or something else entirely, but there was a big predator nearby. Then I remembered the footprint and nearly lost my resolve. I began backing slowly toward the truck, drawing my pistol as I moved. I swept the area, but I didn't see anything out of place. That's when I saw a flash of blue in the brush off to my left. I wanted to get out of the area, but I had to know for sure what that was. I cautiously pushed through the branches and found Tom. His eyes were wide open in terror, and his head was twisted around backwards. It also looked like his arms and legs were broken since they were lying at odd angles. He was a good 30 yards from the wreckage of his deer stand. From his color, I could tell he'd been dead for at least a couple of days. It would take a coroner to say for sure, but this wasn't my first dead body. You kind of get a feel for these things, and I knew it was in the right ballpark. I started to turn away when I saw something clutched in Tom's left hand. It was a clump of long, dark hair. I leaned closer and noticed a foul smell, like a mixture of manure and rotten roadkill. It was nasty, and I backed away. A branch snapped behind me, and I turned to see a creature that had to be every bit of 8 feet tall staring back at me. It was shaped somewhere between a man and a gorilla. Its arms were longer than average, and its knees were bent more than is normal for a man. It was swaying back and forth as it stared at me. It bared its teeth and reminded me of those videos of chimps making a threat display. It made an odd oog, oog, oog sound. This thing was powerfully built and looked like it could flip my truck over without much strain. My first instinct was to dump a magazine into it and run for the truck, but I thought better of it. I doubted my little 9mm would do much more than make it mad, and I'd already seen what it could do to a man. I kept the barrel of the pistol low and began moving slowly toward the truck. The creature watched me warily, and I could see it occasionally flick its eyes toward the pistol. Whatever this thing was, it understood what a firearm was, and I got the distinct feeling that if I tried to raise it, the thing would have torn me apart. Once I was on the trail, I picked up my pace. It started following me, but not getting any closer, but it also wasn't letting me get any farther away. I knew I had a rifle in the truck, but I thought that getting the hell out of here was a better idea. It paced me until I got back to the vehicle and fired up the engine. By the time I turned around to leave, I had completely lost sight of it. I don't know what scared me worse, seeing it or not seeing it, knowing it was still out there. I knew it was still watching me, though, so I headed out of the area as quickly as I could safely go. Once I was back on the highway, I got on the radio and called for additional units to assist with body recovery of a deceased subject who was the victim of some sort of animal attack. No sooner had I hung up the mic than my phone rang. It was my boss. He wanted to know exactly what had happened. I was so shaken up that I just blurted it all out. I told him everything, including the Bigfoot thing and the condition of the body. He was strangely calm when he told me to drop a GPS tag on the exact location of the body and return to the office. He didn't want me going back out there. I asked about Tom's body, and he told me not to worry about it. It would all be taken care of. When I made it back to the office, my boss called me into the office. He said inside were 2 men in military uniforms that I didn't recognize. I'd never seen them before. They presented Department of Defense credentials and didn't give me their names. I was then told that my official report was going to read that the subject had died from injuries sustained in a fall from his deer stand, and that scavengers had gotten to the body. Positive identification had already been made, and his family would be informed of his death, but due to the condition of the body, they wouldn't be allowed to see it. I was then told in no uncertain terms that if I said anything other than what was contained in the report, that it'd be the end of my career, and I could be prosecuted for violating the non-disclosure agreement they made me sign. Honestly, I might have said too much by telling you this story, but it could come back to haunt me. Fortunately, it's been long enough. I don't think anyone will even remember that event, much less the circumstances of Tom's death. Besides, I retire in a couple of years and it won't matter anymore. The funny thing is, this isn't even the strangest thing that's happened in our department in the last 10 years or so. I'd love to tell you about those, but they're not really my stories to tell. Maybe after I retire. Besides, who's going to believe me?
Wow. That was a good story.
Yeah, the detail in that is pretty freaking awesome. What do y'all think of that? Again, I didn't see any of the comments, so if I missed anything.
I think everybody was listening because just Nims are giving me a hard time about going to work tomorrow. That's the only.
Well, I'm going to give me a drink of water before I start that second one because it's just about as long.
I mean, that was a really good. But you know, a lot of these old game wardens, they've seen stuff.
Oh yeah. I've talked to a couple of game wardens over the years that, basically just stonewalled me. They're like, yeah, we can't talk about it. I'm glad everybody liked the story.
I mean,
that's one of my favorite ones that I've ever taken.
The chat pretty much just shut down because everybody was just listening, I think.
David Neal says that sounded like something out of one of my books. Dude, when I write encounter stories in my books, I base them off of encounters that I've collected over the years from people. So, yeah, a lot of those encounters in my books is because I've heard similar stories through the years. Ken says, Robbie just calling to work blind. If they question it, say, I can't see my ass coming to work today. Aaron says, how do you keep doing the job after that? Yeah, it's hard to walk away from those benefits. State benefits are pretty hard to replace. I would imagine he probably didn't go out in the woods without backup again, though. Mrs. Moon says, a former boss's father was a timber investigator in the Cascades. Saw a lot of strange stuff. I bet they did.
Oh, yeah. That area's got a lot of history. I think Cam's had read quite a few stories out of the Cascades.
Cascades is a pretty active area.
Yeah.
Judy Davis says that was an awesome story. I'm staying out of the woods. I feel sorry for Tom's family. Well, Tom wasn't the guy's real name, but supposedly that family still lives down near Doniphan, Missouri. That's an odd little town. It's pretty in that area, but Doniphan's kind of an odd little town.
Well, before you get into the next one, you want to show our latest?
Yeah,
piece?
Absolutely.
Give you time to get you another drink. So, y'all know the story with Lone Wolf and how we're trying to branch out. And some of you have already seen this picture or seen the picture of this on Facebook and Instagram. But I'm going to show you our newest items that we're coming out with: engraved mirrors. And DA, I'll let you say the word on top of that for everybody.
Ulfhednar,
which is the wolf head warriors from Viking legends. And
which some versions of the story actually say they changed.
Mm-hmm. So this is, going back to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, this is some of the legends of werewolves and dogmen and things like that back in Norse mythology.
Noah likes it. David Neal likes it. Dude, I told you that thing's a beast. I love it.
Yep. And this is just a panel. It's going to be offered in possibly like a shadow box, backlit. Now we can do if somebody just wants this, obviously we can do that, and they can put their own touches on it. But if you want it in in the shadow box, we can do that too. But when it's backlit from behind, it looks a whole lot different. I don't have a light back here behind me that I can shine on it to show you, but
you need to set you up a little shadow box with like LEDs behind it.
That's what the one I showed you the picture of earlier. That's what I got that one just to put that in, just to do that. So I just got the LEDs in today though, and I had a chance. I've been working all weekend, so I had a chance to put it in. So
William says I can't hang that in my teepee, Robbie.
William, I've got Native American art that I can do too. You just send me an email, buddy, and I can hook you up. Matter of fact, if you've got something that you've got a high res image that you want me to do, I can do that. We can hook you up, can't we, DA?
Hell yeah!
Because I've got a round one that's probably going to have something else on it. So, yeah, Lone Wolf Customs, any kind of merchandise. Miss Karen has done it again. She's come up with another idea. I ain't gonna say anything until I get them, and I see if I can do them. Just like we didn't say anything about the knives until we figured out we could do them. Which you didn't show. You didn't show the engraved.
Oh no, I did not. Oops, wrong side.
Yeah, the other engraving, not the one that came from Scallywag.
Trying to get that where it's not glared. Robbie was able to put the Wild Hunt logo on the blade of this. And that had to have been challenging because this is like the smallest blade Scallywag makes. I would love to see what he could put on my bounty.
What rocks are we on the big mags? Can we? You talking about for AR, Roxanne?
Well, you guys like that story? I saved the best for last. This is like a story. This is a story I heard years ago at deer camp. Yeah, I'll just read from my notes and let you guys decide for yourself. But this is the last story we'll have for the night. Again, this is another long one, but I hope you guys enjoy it. I was told this story at deer camp several years ago, and it supposedly happened in early May of 1986. I know the man in this story, and I knew the man. He's passed away now, but he's not one to spin tales or make up stories. He had a big jagged scar over his left eye, and he had a full head of hair. He wasn't bald like me, but the scar went from right here in his eyebrow up into his hairline. And I asked him, numerous times how he got the scar. And he'd always say, well, it's a long story. Well, one night at deer camp, we were sitting around the fire and we were passing back and forth a jar of moonshine, mason jar of moonshine that one of us had brought. And after several pretty good hits off that moonshine, he looked over at me and kind of got dead quiet for a minute. And he says, do you really want to know how I got this? And he said, we kind of played with the scar. I said, yeah, well, I'd love to hear the story. He was a good dude. He passed away about the time my youngest son, well, you guys know Noah, Jordan Bunder. He passed away about the same time he was born, same year. I never asked his permission to use his name. So out of respect, I won't reveal his name. But we'll just call him Keith and leave it at that. I've been debating about telling this story for a while because of how reluctant he was to share it. But I thought about it quite a bit, and he was one of the people that even when I was a little kid encouraged me to chase my dream of being a writer. And I would tell goofy campfire stories while we were at deer camp, and he always liked them. So I got to thinking that, he would probably want me to tell this story. And again, it's kind of a tribute to an old friend. He was quite a bit older than me. He was my dad's age. But I went to school with his son, and I'd known him for a long time. I spent a lot of time out at their place cutting wood and hauling hay. That's how we made extra money when I was a teenager. He knew from the time I first met him that I was interested in Bigfoot, and I would always ask him about stuff, and I always figured he knew something, but he never really wanted to talk about it. One thing that made me think he knew something is he never left the house without a gun. He used to hunt black powder. That's where I got Six Killer's rifle in the Dark Frontiers books, because he had a 68 caliber Hawken, and it was a crack shot with it. But he never left the house without a firearm. And even when we went deer hunting, he took the biggest damn rifle I think he could find. It was a bolt action Winchester 454 Magnum. Now, this is a rifle they used to hunt like rhinos and elephant. Yeah, this is a massive round. We used to tell him that he must like his deer pre-chewed. We'd also say, hey, we know we're hunting deer, not Cape buffalo. But he'd just shrug it off and say, there are things out here bigger than deer, boys. Might do you good to remember that. Well, when he decided to tell us the story about the scar, we all sat back and just were absolutely engrossed in it. He took a shot glass full of that moonshine and threw it in the fire, I guess for effect. I don't know. But the fire just flared up real big, almost caught the trees above us on fire, but it flared up pretty high. And then he kind of leaned back and started telling this story, and it scared the crap out of every one of us. I don't think any of us in deer camp slept that night. We all kept the fire going, and nobody really wanted to admit how much it scared us. But every one of us kept our rifles right where we could grab them. But that story scared the crap out of every one of us. He said, boys, I used to go out every year and hunt morel mushrooms. He said, I loved them and always managed to bring in a bunch. I knew a good spot on state land that bordered against mine, and not many people made it that far back in the woods. If you were patient, you could bring in a good crop of them before the season ended. Back then, I had a hunting partner. I'm sure you boys remember Molly, my blue heeler mix. She was the best hunting partner I ever had. We all nodded. I always wondered what happened to her. All he would ever say is she'd gotten lost while they were out hunting and never made it home. I had a feeling we were about to learn the truth. Molly and I went everywhere together, except deer hunting. She couldn't sit still enough to keep quiet. She always had to be up investigating everything around, so I couldn't take her deer hunting. But she was perfect for hunting rabbit and squirrel and just anything else, just not deer. If I went camping or fishing or out on my four-wheeler, she was right with me. I was always happy to have her along when we went out for mushrooms, because she figured out pretty fast what I was looking for and would help point me in the right direction. But she'd range out from me sometimes, and I'd lose sight of her for a few minutes. But she'd come bounding back with a rock or stick in her mouth. That dog loved to explore. We took the four-wheeler back as far as we could go, then slipped through the fence onto state land. It wasn't more than 100 yards in the woods before we started seeing a few mushrooms. I had a canvas bag hooked over my shoulder by a strap, and I started carefully collecting mushrooms and putting them in the bag. Molly was laying right at my feet with her ears up. That struck me as odd, because she was usually off exploring. That's when I realized she hadn't left my side since we left the four-wheeler. I stood up and looked around, but I didn't see anything out of place. The woods were dead quiet, but I kind of put it out of my head. I'd been coming out to these woods for years and hadn't seen so much as a cougar track. I couldn't imagine a big predator being in this area, so I just dismissed it as animals being quiet because of me. Boys, I should have left right then and there, but I was just getting started and I wanted a big bunch of mushrooms to take home. After a few minutes of looking around, I went back to picking mushrooms. Molly stayed right with me and stayed on alert. She was noticing something that I wasn't. A couple of times she let out a soft whine or a short growl. Again, I should have listened to that warning and headed for the house, but I kept stuffing mushrooms into my bag. We'd moved deeper into the woods, about 200 yards or so from where the four-wheeler was parked. I kept a good mental map of where it was, just in case I needed to get out of there in a hurry. The woods were still strangely quiet, and I was starting to get a bit nervous. Molly still stayed right by my side, never moving more than a foot or two away. Finally, all of this started to get to me, and I decided to finish picking the cluster that I'd just found, then get out of there. Maybe I'd come back in a day or two to see if things had changed. I was picking the last of the mushrooms when a rock hit me in the side. It thumped me in my ribs hard enough to hurt, and I saw where it fell to the ground. It was a smooth river rock about the size of a silver dollar. There weren't any creeks or rivers around here, at least not within half a mile or so. I stood up and looked in the direction where the rock had come, but didn't see anything. Molly bristled up and began growling. I glanced down at her when another rock hit me just above my left eye with enough force that I think I lost consciousness. The next thing I knew, I was looking up from the ground and I could only see through one eye. Gingerly, I touched my left eye and found it was covered with blood. The vision in my right eye was blurry and my head was swimming. I could see Molly was right beside me with her hackles up, and she was growling and barking at something out of my view. The sound of her barking seemed to be coming from a long way off. She was doing her best to protect me and keep something away. Then something dark and covered in hair stepped into view and grabbed Molly by the neck. There was a whine followed by a crack, and I knew he had just snapped her neck. I couldn't make out the thing's face since my vision was still blurry, but it looked almost like a man, just bigger. I know it's tough to make a good estimate of something's height while you're laying flat on your back on the ground, but I guessed because Molly looked like a stuffed animal in this thing's hands. When she got in my lap in my recliner, she took up my entire lap. She weighed about 80 pounds, and that thing made her look like a toy. It had to be over 8 feet tall and was built massive, maybe 1,000 pounds. When it tucked Molly under its arm, I felt another hand grab my ankle and start dragging me. The one that had Molly grabbed my bag of mushrooms from where I dropped it when I fell. That meant there were at least 2 of the damn things. It was dragging me without any effort, and I figured that it wasn't planning to take me back to my four-wheeler. We were heading in the wrong direction. I suddenly had the feeling that these things were planning on eating me and Molly. That thought really pissed me off. Through the pain and the fuzzy feeling in my head, I suddenly remembered I was carrying my old .45 on my hip. I fumbled around and my fingers closed on the handle. I cocked it as I drew it and fired twice at the thing that was dragging me. I don't know if I hit it or not, but it let go of me and screamed this god-awful shriek before racing off into the woods. I turned the pistol toward the one that had Molly and fired 3 times. This time I knew I hit it at least once because I saw blood fly from its shoulder. It screamed like the first one and raced off into the trees in a different direction. It didn't drop Molly or the mushrooms. I got shakily to my feet and looked around, keeping my pistol ready to shoot if I saw another one of those damn things. But in the woods around me, I could hear what sounded like a bunch of monkeys raising all kinds of hell. It was like a bunch of them, but they never came out where I could see them. My head was clearing a bit, and I knew I only had a couple bullets left in the pistol before I'd have to change the magazine. I'd only brought 1 more, and they only held 7 rounds. If those things came at me in a rush, I planned on going down shooting, but it wasn't going to be a long fight. As much as I wanted to go get Molly to give her a proper burial, I knew she'd given her life to protect me. I had to get out of there or she died for nothing. I headed for the four-wheeler, and those things kept pace with me. They started throwing rocks and sticks and pine cones and anything else they could find. I got hit a few times, but not enough to knock me back down. It seemed like it took me hours to get back to the four-wheeler, but it really only had to have been a couple minutes. I dove over the fence and turned to see if any of them were coming out of the trees. Another big rock sailed right at me, and I ducked to the side. It smashed the headlight and bent the handlebar on my four-wheeler. I fired off both the remaining rounds from the pistol in the direction where I'd seen the rock come from and heard something grunt in pain. I said, "Take that, you son of a bitch." I jumped on the four-wheeler and hit the starter. It fired right up, and I checked the handlebars. They weren't bad enough to keep me from driving it, but turning might be a bit dicey if I had to make any sudden lefts. I shoved the pistol back in my holster and put the four-wheeler in gear. Then I spun around, sending dirt and leaves in the air. More rocks and sticks rained down around me as I raced off down the trail that led back to my house. Just ahead, I could see a tall pine tree start to lean out over the trail. Those big bastards were trying to block my escape. I knew if I didn't get past it, I was done for. There wasn't another clear trail back to the house without going right through the thick of the woods. I gunned the engine and ducked low as I raced for my life with that damn tree. I felt the branches brush my back as I slipped past it, just barely avoiding getting smashed by it. I didn't slow down until I hit the field behind my house. I jumped off and ran in the house, grabbed my 12 gauge, and headed back out. I could hear the damn thing shrieking from the trees, but they never came out into the field. After a few minutes, I went inside and had my wife clean up my eye and bandage it. I wanted to tell her what happened, but I didn't think she'd believe me. Hell, I barely did. I finally broke down and told her. She wasn't sure what to think until one tried to get in the house that night. She saw it clear in the porch light when I shot at it with the shotgun. For almost a month after that, we'd hear the damn things coming around the house at night. We made sure to keep the doors locked and the animals in the barn. We lost a few, though, chickens and one hog, but the rest we managed to protect. After that, they never came back, at least as far as we know. You boys want to know why I carry a rifle this big? Well, it ain't for the deer. I plan on killing every one of them sons of bitches that I can find. And if this 454 can't get the job done, then I hope they damn well choke on me.
That was gripping.
Imagine hearing that over a campfire.
Yeah. That's
We were scared shitless that night.
I imagine so.
No,
How old
there
was
wasn't a single one of us slept that night.
How old did you say you were when you heard that?
First time I heard the story, I was about 18. It was in
Yeah.
88. It was the year I joined the Army. So
Yeah, George, that word works too.
I liked that dog too. I remembered that dog. Every time I went out to their farm, that dog was just always up in your lap, always wanting attention.
That's but it's stories like that, that when you hear stories like that, and especially when you hear it firsthand, and it's not, I mean, it was great hearing it this way, but hearing it firsthand, I mean, that's the kind of stories that we kind of live for in this field. Excuse me. But I wish I could find somebody that had a story like that they wanted to tell. I'd love to hear a story like that firsthand.
It took me years of picking at him to get him to tell me that story, because I asked him for as long as I knew the guy about what happened to his eye. David Neal says, "Damn, that's stone cold, and he's got balls of steel." If he backed up that ending, we lost him to cancer, unfortunately. But I have no doubt that he would have covered the ground he stood on. If he'd have saw another one of them damn things, he'd have shot it. He'd have put every round he had into it.
Thanks, Noah. Such a thoughtful guy.
Well, there's so many stories of these things not liking dogs, especially dogs that bark. And that dog stood its ground trying to defend him. And that dog's a hero in my book. I mean, they probably would have snapped his neck had that dog not if that dog tucked tail and ran. He probably never would have regained consciousness. But that scar, it went from his eyebrow up to about here. It was about a 6-inch scar, busted him wide open. I said, "Why didn't you go get stitches?" He said, "Son, we don't go to the doctor unless you got bones sticking out of the skin." He said, "We just taped it up and I went back to work."
Yeah. That old salt of the earth.
You know how that generation was, man. He was a Korean War veteran, former Marine. Luis Noriega says, "That's the reason why I carry a 45-70 in my 44 every time I go camping. You don't know what's out there." That's exactly right. That's why, I know I don't advocate shooting one of these things. I never have, because I don't know that if you shot one, even if you put it down, is it alone? And are you prepared to deal with its buddies? But I don't want to be the guy that drags one in. I don't have any intention of trying to drag one in and drop it on somebody's desk and go, "See, they exist." I just don't want. I know that's going to be a hell of a headache. But I will only shoot one if I have to.
Yeah, and I think if something like that ever happened and I had to, I wouldn't ever tell anybody. Because I don't have to prove it anyway to myself. I
Right.
know.
Yeah, I don't need proof. You know, my wife was on the fence about these things until we found those tracks outside the cabin. And now she's like, you're armed. You know, like if we go out to, like, because sometimes I'll go out to like Moon Valley and film videos and stuff. She's like, you're armed, right? I'm like, yeah, if I'm outside the house, you bet your ass I'm armed. Nimsa says no one's allowed to go into the woods in America or Canada without an RPG or a tank. A new law passed by her. Well, as open as they are with the gun laws, they still won't let us buy stuff like that.
No. Doc can probably get something like that, knowing him.
Griff says, DA, did you say former Marine? No such animal. Once a Marine, always a Marine. He fought in Korea with the Marine Corps. He was one of the support units for the Frozen Chosen. He wasn't at the reservoir, but he was one of the units that came in as they were pulling out. One of the relief units. Said he actually got to meet Puller. So, you know, that's about as high and mighty as you can get as a Marine, I suppose. Mark Napier says, ever since I read Lakeview Man, I wear my Glock 30 to go to the mailbox.
Yep, I'm about the same way. If I'm outside the house, well, if I'm inside the house, I've usually got one within reach just about anywhere I'm at.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'd been saving those last two stories for a while. I thought the Halloween build up was the perfect time.
Yeah, those are good. I really enjoyed both of those two stories. I'm glad I didn't get to finish reading them before, because it was better hearing it firsthand and not knowing what was coming.
I thought about like sitting down with those and cleaning them up a little bit, releasing them, and like, well, of course, I would have to add a lot of detail to them because those are just told like a campfire story. They don't have the details I would put in if I was writing a story. I thought about going back and cleaning both of those up and writing them out in long story format and releasing them as short stories based on true stories. I'll have to add that to the list because I've got a lot on the plate as it is.
Yeah, but I think those definitely would be something that you could do something like that with.
What's up, dude? Guys from the Horror Chronicles are here. It's probably
Yeah,
Ryan.
Yep.
What's up, brother? Grizzly says, whose desk would you toss that body on? Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't even know who to begin to take one of those things to, because I got a feeling that if Ryan says they're both here. What's up, guys? It's JT and Ryan from the Horror Chronicles. Guys, go by Horror Chronicles on YouTube. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to their video. Awesome, guys. They just dropped a video, oddly enough, with me. Did an interview with them, and they released it earlier today. I watched it before our show. Those guys are a hoot, and we're going to get them on the show here real soon. Miss Naoma's in the house. Well, unfortunately, I guess she didn't make it home in time. I was hoping she'd be able to join us. Sorry. 1980 CNH says Gunny. Hey DA, is that the guy you patterned Gunny after in the zombie books? Part of it. There's another buddy of mine that is more Gunny than anybody, but yeah, there's homages to him in at least a couple of the books.
I like when we do these shows with the stories and things like that. Those are some of my favorite shows that we've done.
I enjoy these encounter stories, and I thought that right before Halloween was a good one to do. Nighthawk says, "Sweet dreams tonight. I'm going to watch Pumpkinhead and Hear No Evil. After the story, sitting here cleaning my guns." Those are both good movies, man. Enjoy. I haven't seen Pumpkinhead in a long time. That's a great movie. Well, Miss Naoma, you're always welcome anytime you want to join us. So I'm sorry you couldn't make it tonight, but anytime you want to jump in, you just let us know. So, did they win or lose?
17-17, 22 seconds left to go in the game.
Oh, well, at least they tied it up.
No, Miami come back and tied it up on. We were winning 17. We were winning most of the game, 17-7, and they scored and they kicked a field goal, and that's 22 seconds left to go. So it was like we're gonna hold on for overtime. Hopefully, and I think that's what Miami's playing for because they're just running. They ain't tried to even throw the ball. This third down, so they're playing for overtime.
Naoma says, "I was so mad. I thought it would be too late when I woke up. But if you want to clean those stories up and send them to me, I'd love to narrate them for you, put you up on the channel. Definitely. Let me clean those up.
That'd be good. Naoma could read those stories really well.
Let me clean those up, and I'll rewrite those like I would if I was writing one of my own stories, and just like add in terrain details and things, just things like that kind of paint a bigger picture, and see how many words I can get those, because those are pretty lengthy, but they're only a couple thousand words a piece. So let me see if I can see about getting those cleaned up, and I would love to have you narrate those. That would be so cool." David Neal says, "Curious, would Lauren Coleman of the Cryptozoological Museum be a good idea to send or even invite to examine a Bigfoot body if somebody ever had anything physical to show?" He probably would be. JT says, "Ryan just got molested by the Ozarks howler walking out of the studio." You sure it wasn't the other way around?
Might have been.
Knowing Ryan. Well, folks, we are pretty far past the 2-hour mark. Before we start winding things up, you guys know that's the time I always mention the 22 a day foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that's 22 too many. We owe a huge debt to all of our veterans and our first responders, all the men and women that have worn a uniform to keep us all safe and free. So if you know anybody that that is a veteran, current or active, a veteran or is still active duty, or has been a first responder in any capacity, they've all put their ass on the line, sometimes in more ways than people will ever know. But reach out to those folks and let them know you're thinking about them, because that text from you or that call from you might be what keeps them off the edge. And 22 a day is 22 too many. Is there anything else we need to cover? We did all our affiliates.
Got all the affiliates. You did 22 a day in the Valhalla Project. We did Lone Wolf.
Well, it sounds like it's about time to do our evening toast then. Let me pour myself something amber, and
yeah, go ahead, rub it in.
Did you drink all of that?
No, I just mean I got to work tomorrow, so I can't.
Oh, you got to. Well, you can have a little bit. There's an old Irish song called "The Parting Glass," and when you read the lyrics, it sounds like they're just talking about having a glass and raising it to the folks as they're going home for the night as the bar's closing. But when you really read the lyrics, it's about more than that. It's about saying goodbye to those who had gone before you. It's about lifting a glass for those who can't lift it anymore. I dedicated tonight's show to my brother Danny, gone but never forgotten brother. He was a Vietnam veteran, 101st Airborne, was a door gunner on a Huey. Was a hell of a guy, hell of a good storyteller. He could tell some great stories, and I think he would have been pretty proud of tonight's show. Hell, if he was still around, I'd love to have had him join us and tell a few of his own, because I know he had a bunch of good ones. Noah says, Robbie, I can have a little in your stead.
Yeah.
And if you guys got a glass handy, it doesn't matter if it's water or soda or whatever, just kind of a little toast to those that we've lost along the way, to those who've gone on before us, and those who aren't here with us anymore. And and to be thankful for the ones we still have. We're thankful for each and every one of you guys. We might be a family, but we put the fun in dysfunctional. We're proud to have each and every one of you guys as members of the DAX Machina Nation. And we thank each and every one of you for making this channel what it is, because without you, it'll just be a couple of idiots making jokes that nobody was listening to. But we thank you guys for being part of this and for sharing your experiences with us, and for sharing your evening and allowing us to come into your lives for a couple hours here and there. And we really appreciate it. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you guys so much. And to close this out with the toast, toast says, but since it fell unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAX Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.